Chapter 13, Visual Aids, for use with the public speaking projects, Public Speaking, the Virtual Text. Please note that this tutorial will not cover all of the material found within the chapter, and there may be one or two items covered in this tutorial that might not be found within the book. Be sure to choose your visual aids carefully. You want to use visuals that really help to explain something important about your topic to your audience. Good visual aids can help the audience remember that important information for a much longer period of time than they would if they did not have the visual aids to look at. There are different types of visual aids that can be incorporated into your speech or presentation. One of them is your attire, or how you dress, or your physical appearance and how you appear to the audience. Another type of visual aid is a 3D object or objects that you might bring into the venue where you're speaking, such as perhaps a musical instrument or other type of object or other types of props that you might use. Also, you could potentially use flip charts or posters. You might also use handouts that you pass out before your speech for the audience to refer to during your speech. You can also use electronic slideware such as Microsoft PowerPoint or Google Slides, or you can also use a relatively newer program called Prezi. Some principles of design to keep in mind as you put your visual aids together. Try to make sure that the visual aid is audience focused. Focus on the needs and wants of the audience. Try not to incorporate too much or too little information into any single visual aid. If you're using electronic slideware such as PowerPoint, try not to put too much information on one slide. You can always try and take that information and spread it out over 2 or more slides if you need to. And try to focus on just one concept per slide. If you have 2 or 3 concepts you'd like to cover, put those on 2 or 3 separate slides, or use 2 or 3 separate visual aids to differentiate them from each other. In terms of slide layout, be sure to leave enough white space or empty space in your slides or on your slides so the information doesn't become too crowded. Also, be sure to use a consistent color scheme. In other words, use the same color scheme for all of the slides on your PowerPoint file or your Google Slides file or whatever type of slideware program you may be using. Be sure to use either dark text on a light background or light text on a dark background, because if you use light text and a light background or dark text and a dark background, it's more difficult to read. And of course, try to use a font that's easy to read. This image shows a pie chart. Pie charts are good at expressing information in terms of fractions of a whole. In other words, if you have 100% of something broken into separate smaller categories, pie charts are good at expressing or displaying that type of information. On this slide, we see an image of a line graph. This line graph is showing information chronologically. When you see similar graphs, such as how the stock market is doing over the course of a period of time, that's usually represented in a line graph. And usually line graphs present information over a period of time. Here we see a bar chart illustrating quantities of a certain item, in this case over time. There are 2 different bars, each with a different color, and you can compare or contrast the quantities of them over time as you look at each month found at the bottom or in the x-axis of the bar chart. For more information on visual aids, please visit the Public Speaking Project's tutorials entitled An Introduction to Visual Aids and Using Visual Aids at www.publicspeakingproject.org/videomodules.html. The Public Speaking Project's textbook, Public Speaking, the Virtual Text, can be found at www.publicspeakingproject.org.